Okay, so for this video, what we want to do is just show you briefly the contract to buy and sell real estate. This is the document that I fill out for you to, once we've found a property that you like, we've talked about what the offer is going to entail. I put it together on this form, get it over to you for your signature as we go through it. I want you to have a real quick look at it so that you're comfortable with it. It's all plain language, doesn't require having your attorney's license to understand what this contract is. So we're going to go through one right now real quickly. All right. So this is the contract to buy and sell real estate. I've highlighted things that I wanted to touch base on real briefly with you. In this case, this is an agreement between my dog Riggs as the buyer and my dog Miko as the seller. Miko is selling her doghouse to Riggs for $100,000. So this contract starts out with what does it mean? Who's buying? Who's selling? What's being bought, sold? What's included? The inclusions. Generally speaking, the rule is real property stays, personal property goes. So what is real property? It's anything that is fixed to the property, to the house or to the land. So a tree in the ground is real property. They're not going to be able to dig it up and take it with them. The ceiling fan that's mounted to the ceiling that requires a screwdriver to get out of there, that stays with the property. The dishwasher that is built into the kitchen, that stays. Alternatively, the refrigerator is just plugged in. It just pulls out, they take it with them. So that would be personal property. That would go unless it's included in the offer. So we're very careful about what's included, what's excluded. The contract goes through a lot of pre-printed stuff that's included and excluded, but we make sure that we know exactly what is staying and what is not staying. Again, we've got our inclusions, we've got our exclusions. Once we get through that, we've got dates and deadlines. So generally speaking, this contract talks in terms of sections. There's the title section, there's the HOA Homeowners Association section, property disclosures section, loan section, appraisal section, survey inspection, and then closing. So those are the different sections. They generally go, if everything always went smoothly, this contract would be a much shorter document. So what this is doing is saying, what is the seller's obligation to the buyer in terms of providing like a disclosure? What is the buyer's right to do on the property, such as an appraisal or an inspection, where somebody comes into the property and inspects it? The seller's giving that authorization to do so. What happens if there's a problem with it? If there's objections from the inspection, objections from the appraised value, objections to the homeowners association documents review, that type of thing. What is the process of objecting? And then what does the resolution process look like? So this contract, that's going to be a repeated theme. What's going to be done? Is there a time frame for that? What is the objection and resolution process as a result? So these are our dates and deadlines of the contract for Riggs and Miko. Generally speaking, it's about a 1 month closing time frame. So here's our closing date of August 30th. At the time of this recording, this is July 30th. So I put this as a 1 month close. That's fairly standard, fairly normal. Our purchase price is $100,000. Our earnest money is $1,500. Riggs is getting an FHA loan with minimum down. So the down payment is $3,500. The loan itself is $96,500. The cash at closing and the earnest money put together is the down payment amount. In this case, Riggs is asking for Miko to pay $2,000 of Riggs's closing costs in terms of a seller concession. What that does, basically from a seller's point of view, is it turns this offer of $100,000 into an offer of $98,000. So it's actual $2,000. Talks about earnest money and getting earnest money over to whoever's holding it, the title company, listing brokerage firm, whoever it is, in a timely manner. Now it talks about us getting a loan. In this case, Riggs is getting the FHA loan. Transaction provisions, Riggs's right to object and terminate and get his earnest money back if there's a problem with the loan. The interest rate is not acceptable. He doesn't get approved for the loan in a timely manner. He has the right to terminate. We've got our appraisal provision in there. If it doesn't appraise for 100,000, well, then Riggs's right is to walk away from the transaction or object to the seller about that. Same with the homeowners association, right to review those documents and object if there's anything that is that he doesn't like. Title, this is a section where, again, the seller is going to provide order title insurance for you, for the buyer. We're going to get a commitment for that title insurance that we get a chance to review, object, and resolve if there's any problems there. Same thing with the tax certificate to see the taxes for the property. Talks about if there's going to be a survey done, who orders that, who pays for it, and who gets a copy of it. Section 10 is a long one. That's about the seller disclosures to you, the buyer, your right to inspect the property. It talks about whether there's any condition for the sale of another property in order to buy this one. As a first-time home buyer, that's not going to be an issue on this one. But this talks about, again, the whole process of inspecting the property and any necessary disclosures. So 10 is a fairly long section there. Then we get into the closing provisions. Both parties are going to have their own individual closing documents that they're going to be obligated to sign at closing. It talks about when the date of closing and where it's going to be. Typically, it's at the title company. What type of deed is being transferred in order to transfer ownership of the property. It talks about each party's closing costs and their obligation to pay their own closing costs, except in this case where Riggs is asking for MECO to pay $2,000 of Riggs's closing costs. HOA, any fees associated with that, who pays for status letter fees, who pays for any additional fees in terms of transferring ownership. Prorations, taxes for the year of closing are going to be a big proration because taxes are always paid for the previous year. So right now we're in 2024. MECO would pay right up to the end of August taxes. The anticipated taxes would give that to Riggs because they're not going to be due until the beginning of next year. So MECO's not going to be tracked down to pay at the beginning of next year. It's going to be a final settlement at the closing table. MECO pays Riggs. The section 18 is what happens if something goes wrong with the property from the time of close or contract to the time of closing. So if there's a fire and it burns the whole place down, this is where it says, hey, the buyer's not obligated to buy the property because it has changed. But if there's minor damages, if the stove stops working, it is the seller's obligation to fix it prior to closing or replace it with a new stove that's at least as good as the one that was there. So that's what this section talks about, and it gives us the right to do our final walkthrough, which we talked about during the steps of how to buy a property. This section talks about if one party is in default, what does the other party have as their remedy for that default? Scrolling down, then we get to section 29, which is the additional provisions of the contract. Depending upon anything special in a contract, this is where we would put that in. In this case, it's just a very straightforward offer, nothing special, so there are no additional provisions. And then we'd have buyer's signature Riggs right here, seller's signature MECO right there. All of this is done electronically. You can do it on your cell phone. You never have to print this out. So very smooth, very plain language, not legalese at all. And it's something that once we get to a point where I'm writing the offer with you, I will go through in as much depth as you want. We can go line by line, or I can just kind of breeze through it and give you the highlights like I just did. Both are fine with me. But that I wanted to give you a chance to see that now, and then we will get on to the next video. Thank you, guys.